buenas, un gusto estar con todos ustedes. Este es el tercer encuentro que tenemos. El encuentro es con Cyril Neyrat. Ya lo voy a presentar, ya voy a cambiar al inglés, pero bueno, simplemente decir que el PlayDoc tiene este espacio que está por fuera de las actividades que se hacen en vivo. Hay otras actividades en vivo de diálogos y de encuentros, pero estos son encuentros que permiten justamente reunir personas que no estamos en España, que no estamos en ese magnífico lugar que es Tui. Y además, gente que el festival, como también yo que organizo estos encuentros, consideramos centrales para pensar el cine contemporáneo. Eh, ya está publicado, ya lo pueden ver en nuestros encuentros que ya hemos tenido, primero con Rita Acevedo Gómez, con Jonathan Rosenbaum, y ahora es el turno de Cyril. Rápidamente de Cyril se puede decir, lo voy a decir en inglés después, y voy a pasar a este idioma que no es ni el de Cyril ni el mío, que es el inglés, pero que sigue, para bien o para mal, siendo una lengua que muchos hablan, más allá de que no sean sus lenguas respectivamente maternas. Dicho esto, muy bienvenidos y paso al inglés. English. So thank you so much, Cyril, for being with us. I was just introducing yourself and the whole setting of these meetings that we have in PlayDoc. I was trying to contextualize and explain, but let's begin. First of all, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for
Thanks
being.
to you
I
for
know.
having me with
No,
you.
it's a privilege, to be honest. Cyril is a film critic. Nowadays, he's the artistic director of FidMarseille. He has been working in that festival for years. There was a moment that he stopped for a while and then he came back. He has been publishing conversations with Albert Serra, Pierre Creton, Jean-Claude Rousseau, Pedro Costa, of course. And he has been also writing as a film critic, son in a moment in Cahiers du Cinéma, also in Vertigo. And he is still, as far as I understand, giving classes in Paris 3 and 7 and some other places. But he is one of the most, for me, free thinking in the whole community of film festivals. And that implies a way of understanding how to understand programming in film festival nowadays. And so that is the idea of the talk. Now I translate you will find a little bit strange, not you, Cyril, but maybe the audience, the way that I've written the title of this conversation. But from someone like me who is not European and we get into Europe, it's a big question if you are not a member of the Schengen area. So I use the metaphor of that, like films which do not belong to the symbolic Schengen area of film festivals, so to speak. So the idea of the title of this meeting is Beyond the Schengen Area or Films Without a Visa. And the second title of this, or the accompanying idea, is on conservatism in films, in festival curation, and the challenge of undermining the dominant certainties of aesthetic programming in contemporary film festivals. It sounds promising, I think it will be. It sounds ambition, yes, it is, but why not? So let's begin, my dear Cyril, if
Yes,
you allow
we'll
me.
do our best.
Okay, we do our best. So as far as I see, there are a lot of films which I found daring, challenging, that usually, as someone who is following certain films, I see how those films are rejected from one festival to another. And finally, I see that there are few places in which those films are still welcome, received, contextualized, present, analyzed, and then when the films are in FidMarseille, you understand why Marseille is still a singularity in the context of film festivals. So what do you think is going on in terms of the dialectics and dynamics of film festival agendas on one hand, and on the other hand, what is going on according to your view and your experience in terms of what is happening with the criterias in which films are immediately rejected from certain places and are not even considered them in certain places, and then it is not that you are doing a kind of like there is a piety or a kind of misericord, in your case. It is different. You are understanding the richness of those films. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I think you must be aware of this situation.
Yes, I'm aware, but it's tricky to talk about that because I mean it's not about myself and only about
No,
the work
the
we do.
team.
It's it's difficult to say that we work better than the other ones, but um, I mean I think FidMarseille has always been one of the only ones festivals, or the only ones to do the work you described very well. Um, and now maybe the discrepancy between what we do, maybe the number of festivals who do this daring job, this job of promoting films and filmmakers who are not on the map, and film writings and aesthetics who are not on the map yet. Because maybe that's the criteria, whether a festival's job is to acknowledge or to reproduce or to reconduct a certain aesthetics which have already been acknowledged and recognized by history or by other festivals, or is the job of the festival to give a chance to take risks and to give opportunities and chance to filmmakers, aesthetics, approaches of cinema, ways of using cinema tools, which haven't been recognized and acknowledged yet. I mean, because we believe that cinema is is an art which is maybe cinema died a long time ago, but it's still, I mean, his afterlife is amazing. So, um, no, seriously, it's very alive. So, um, why do most of the other festivals who could do this job, who could, because festivals who are also looking for world premieres, who also do this, tough job of, I mean, this category of festivals which have in their rules, maybe untold rules to select world premieres or international premieres, well, to take the risk of selecting films which haven't been shown before. Why do most of them don't take risks anymore? There is a new form of conservatism. I agree, and I think it's I don't know. Maybe it is true that is something that we notice that the distance and the discrepancy between the industry and films which are made out of the industry. Let's say an industry very quickly. We understand each other has changed, has deepened in the recent years. I mean the risks, and I mean there used to be much more good industry films like 10 years ago. I mean, films with budgets, film with money, films with, who were, yeah, used to be much more daring and taking much more risks. Now they don't anymore. It's very hard to find every year one, two, three very good, interesting, new, surprising films, which come from I don't, and I don't even mean big industry like Hollywood. I
No,
mean just
maybe,
proper.
maybe, Cyril, we can rephrase it. Let's say authors' films which has some money behind. In the past, there was around, I
Yes.
agree, like 2025, but now it's shrinking in a way, because
I
it's not
mean,
industrial in the most proper sense, in the sense that it's not mission impossible, which is could be fine sometimes.
no.
But we are
Yeah.
talking that, I think.
Yeah, films which have money behind, we have distribution money, production money behind, and uh, and yes, and so that I think the experiment and the daring and the courage is more found now in films made made without money or with fewer money, with no money interest in them. That's maybe one reason. I think another reason is just it's a weird thing to say, but it's depends on the people who are in charge of the festivals, and who select. And I mean, what makes a good programmer? I don't know. I think it's for me, I discovered the world of festivals when I came to FID, when I started to work with Jean-Pierre Rehm in FID in 2004, 5, so more than 20 years ago. I knew nothing about it. I came from university background. And I discovered someone who had two things, both an amazing classic cinephilia, knowledge of film history, very broad and very passionate and very deep. But he had also a very precise and knowledge and interest for the history of art, modern art, contemporary art, literature. So he was able in his mind to see films with different lenses at the same time. I mean, the cinephile lens with criteria which come from a certain history, which is that of cinema, and another lens, which means another ways of thinking, of approaching the image, of approaching the making of sense, the production of meaning in films, which come from the history of art, I would say, of modern art, modern contemporary art. And that's, I mean, it takes this kind of culture and diverse also sources of culture, I think, to be able to see films with in a way which doesn't reproduce a dominant taste. A
Don't
dominant taste.
taste also, and because I see something. First of all, I think what Jean-Pierre Rehm, by the way, he was interviewed in these sections in Playdoc like 3 years ago when he left FidMarseille. I
Mhm,
felt that it was a moment to recognize him, like all these years that he has been behind the festival, and we talked to him in order to
mhm,
explore what he has done and so on in different ways that now we are doing, but recognizing something that he has created. And I don't think that nowadays Fit Marseille it's just following him. Yes, but you are open
yes, we are,
again because there's a new
but no.
generation. Jean-Pierre is a little bit older than me, and you are much younger than me. So it seems to be like there is a conversation between generations, between him and you, and there is an ongoing process of getting that tradition and open and expand it even more because the time has changed, of course.
Of
But
course.
how do you perceive these, and especially what you have said, and I think is extremely important. On one hand, to have the cinephile background, and you said classic cinephile background. And on the other hand, some kind of relationship between other fields of knowledge and arts, because Jean-Pierre was not only arts, it was also maybe philosophy, literature, as you said. So, how do you see that? But plus, I have the impression that nowadays, for instance, maybe some film programmers know Pedro Costa, but maybe they don't know Pablo Rocha and they don't know Antonio Reis and Margarida Cordeiro. So there is a kind of hole. I'm thinking of if there must be something connected with a gap in generations, and I'm not playing the card of the idea that past is better, our generation is better.
Mm,
The problem is beyond that. There is something how we reach towards these places of decisions, and nowadays I feel sometimes that there is a lack of knowledge of certain period of cinema, which implies something when you select films. I don't know if
mhm.
you have thought about that.
Yeah, no, it's when you say these people they know when they praise Pedro Costa and they don't know Reich and Paulo Rocha, but they know even less Turner and Walsh, for example, who are
Yeah.
as important for Pedro as the modern ones. When I
Mhm.
say classic cinephilia, it doesn't mean only the classical cinema. It means a strong background, which goes from the silent till the until today. And without, in the best, I mean, the best would be not having missed any step in the sequence. And so it's true that this it's difficult because yes, as you said, it's we don't want to be the grumpy old school cinephiles who complain about the loss of culture, but still, I must say that it's. I mean, I see my colleagues around me at FidMarseille. People are specialized, you know. One is very good in documentary history and like political cinema, have a knowledge much better, much precise than mine. Uh, but has never seen a John Ford movie, for example. You know, this kind of specialized cinephilia, which it's nice when you can combine them in a team, then it's useful. But if the person who selects and who programs only has one part of cinephilia, it becomes a
And that's
problem.
a problem. I also consider a problem when film programmers they stop watching. That is something that I was surprised about Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre used to go to watch the new Spielberg film, the new I don't know, even
He sees
Christopher
everything.
Nolan. He was watching the daily. Maybe in France it's a little bit tricky because France the daily opening week films are much more expanded than in some other places. But he was following in this case, particularly the industrial films, in order to understand, because most of the audiences that we have, even nowadays, is even I would say worse because they see films in platforms. They don't see it even in cinemas. So, but in order to not lose the connection between the perception of the regular audience that they see that film, and I know that it's important to have not only the past, even the present, which is extremely open, to understand the movement, no, of what is going on. I don't know how do you. I know that you are like someone who try to watch regular films, so to speak.
No, but that is absolutely essential, and it is something that Jean-Pierre told us a lot when he was the one who was going to watch the more films among us, you know, in the selection committee. He was saying, I mean, a film every day, you know, in cinema. I mean, in cinema, a new film every day. So he couldn't understand how we could not be more curious than we were. So that's obvious. We have to. Oh, of course, you have to go to the movies as much as you can and to see, yeah, and try to. I mean, cinema is one and is very diverse. It's one of the beliefs we have in FidMarseille. We don't label films, we don't categorize films. We try to, in our program, to open the scope of films and film writings as wide as possible because we believe it is one. There are no, you know, but it's very diverse, and you have to try to keep on embracing this unity and diversity of film aesthetics, levels of production. I mean, I said industry in the beginning, but of course I have nothing against expensive films, and I just noticed a tendency today, which is the one we said,
There is
but
something that maybe we can explore further, which is connected with money or there
yeah,
is a particular idea, and usually when this whole thing that sometimes it should be discussed in a much profound and proper way, which is all the labs around the world connected with film festival, which is it's a problem. I think I wouldn't say that it's wrong in certain behind it. There are certain ideas it could be useful, but sometimes it's quite dangerous in a way. We are not about to talk about that, but there is something in those places which seems to be a concept that behind our minds makes a kind of distinction between films, which is the idea of production value. There are certain films that you can easily understand that there is nothing, there is no money behind in any sense of the word. And that you see in the image and in the whole material, the material side of the film. And that, for just that reason, the film is immediately ruled out from the consideration of the festival. And this is something that I truly see that in FidMarseille, it doesn't happen. Can you tell a little bit, how do you, in what sense do you open up these kind of films, which it's
Yeah.
quite clear they don't have any production value behind it?
I think it is the main point now of our discussion. And before coming to our case, I have one example which struck me. I mean, I saw the selection of the director's fortnight. La quinzaine, 3 days
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
and I'm sure there's going to be great films. I'm not discussing the quality of the selection. I'm discussing the homogeneity of the selection regarding this question of production value. All the films, when their selection is announced, the name of the distributor is French distributor is already announced. She said the filmmaker, the title, the country, and the distributor. It means a film which doesn't have a distributor when he applies to this kind of festival today will be has no chance to be selected. And I remember I was in Cannes with Cyril Neyrat when Olivier Pierre in the quinzaine selected Honor de Cavalleria, Albert Serra's first film. I mean, no fucking production value in this film at the moment. No production value at all. The guy was unknown. It was made with this like DV camera or small. He didn't have a distributor because it's when we met Albert in Cannes in a hotel with after being amazed by the film. We met Albert with Thierry, and Thierry Lenas became his distributor a few months ago, and then his producer, and then they broke and blah blah blah. I mean, I'm bringing this example to point out the guts that Olivier Père had at the time to select in Cannes, in Quinzaine, a film with absolute an unknown guy with no production value, no producer, no distributor, nothing. Just
And no
him, his
name.
talent.
Nobody knew who was Albert Serra.
Of course.
It was a
But
name out of the blue, right?
but do you see such cases in Cannes, for example, in any section of Cannes?
Not
Of
anymore.
a,
Not
of a
anymore.
filmmaker who just comes out of the blue with not even a short film which has been awarded in festivals before. Doesn't happen anymore.
And
And I'm naming Cannes, but I could name many other festivals.
yeah,
Many other.
it could be the biggest. The biggest is quite obvious, but important. We say can not because we are fixed in can as a kind of
Yeah, yeah,
fetish thing. It is because is where everything can be shown because everyone they are still thinking that Cannes is like a Vatican, like the place that the films are canonized. So that is the reason that we have to discuss Cannes, not because Cannes as such, but because
mhm,
it is the flashlight of the whole system for good reasons and for bad reasons at the same time. And I agree with
of
that.
course.
Can you go back
But
about the idea of the production value?
yeah, but for example, I know at Fit, maybe something which I discovered at Fit too, but me, the biggest pleasure for me, for us at Fit, for our selection team, is to discover it's to find the utter beauty in a film with no money. I mean, it's the biggest pleasure and pride we have as programmers when we can put in the catalog, put on the screen, put on in front of professionals from all over the world who come to feed and to the audience to put films which come from the drawer of a guy in his bedroom. That's the most. at the greatest pleasure and the biggest pride we can have, because and of course it's something which we are very, we try to, I mean, we do it very consciously at Feed, to try to have in the same competitions, in the same selections, films with big production value and films with no production value at all, and to have all different cases in between, you know. But I mean, the very idea that the value of a film should be evaluated through the money which is put in it, and which means the money the film should make afterwards, is scandalous.
Yeah.
It's just if you think of it, it's a pure negation of the very idea of art and of creation.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you, no, seriously, if you claim to be a critic, an art critic, or a programmer, which for me is not the same, but of
there
course
is a merge.
linked
Yeah.
together. It's definitely strongly, deeply linked together. In my case, in yours, and in the case of others, not all. Um, I mean, the idea that money would be a criteria to you know, I mean, what I say is very simple, but it's something, it's a simple thing we tend to forget, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
And
It's easy to forget. It's very easy to forget as well. It is very easy to forget that when you are invited to a film festival somewhere in the middle of nowhere, the important thing is to discover films and not to do tourism, which is no, sometimes it happens like that. I would like to go back to this subject, but before that, I have also seen that it's extremely important not only to be capable of have a look and have an eye and sensibility towards the films that finally are selected in FidMarseille, those films which doesn't have a big budget behind or don't have distribution and so on. But there is an effort in the way that those films are presented in the catalog. First of all, there is a long, short review. It's not just a comment. It's not just a synopsis. It's a critical approach towards the film, how everyone and every programmer writes on the catalog, firstly, and in the second movement in the catalog, there is always an interview below the description, the critical description synopsis. So it seems to be that there is not only to have a look of on the film and pick it, but immediately to open up the hidden criteria why that has been there and not in other films. Can you tell us a little bit about the created knowledge around the selection, which is quite clear in Fit Marseille?
yeah, that's a very important thing. But just allow me to just add something with this idea of production value
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
said before. I mean, the idea of selecting films with a the idea of production value being criteria, conscious or unconscious, in the selection of films in festivals is even more scandalous today. That it's so easy to make films without money. You have so many. I mean, 30 years before, all films had production value in a way. I mean, the proportion of films with production value, I mean, was because it was difficult to make films with that money if you were outside of the experimental field of cinema, you know. But today, I mean, and of course, 70% of the interesting films that we see in the selection process of film are made with no money, of course. And if we can't bring it to the screen and bring it, and I mean, if the festival can't be faithful to that very obvious fact that films don't cost money and that more and more people can make films in ways which don't involve big production money, or we have to be it's just the state of the arts. We have to be faithful to it. And festivals betray, and the world of festivals betray this, and it's very
yeah.
it's I mean, it's a historical failure, and faults. Sorry to be a bit dramatic, but
No. You have
but
to.
I mean
It's dramatic.
this
It's dramatic.
conservatism, which is both a question of money and a question of snobism too. I
Mhm.
mean, the very trendy names that you see in all festivals, and sometimes one name gets access to this circle of the trendy filmmakers who circle all around here, festivals with their
And
films,
it's also the breach because I really not only appreciate the filmmaker, I also appreciate the human being, and I am absolutely sure that he's beyond all these manipulations as well as calculations behind it. But I'm absolutely sure that a film like Drive Live by Alexandre Koberitze, he wouldn't have been in Locarno if he wouldn't have made a name through his second films. Can you imagine someone who is known from nowhere and has no name to present a film like that, 3 hours like that, Drive Live today? It will never be taken by the big festival. Never. Because now he has been recognized. You put it. I have made I have showed that film in certain places that nobody knows about anything about film festival, and everybody complain, but it doesn't look okay. It doesn't look proper. And that is the trick of the film, that you can show all this is something else, which is
yeah,
what does it mean to have great films? That they are sharp and bright, the quality of the image. You have to have the same quality of a TV that we can buy in 4K, 8K. It's quite obvious that it's not. So, but that is also, like the festival allows themselves to play radical cards when the object is already and the name behind the object is already completely
yes,
canonized, which is fine in the case
absolutely.
of Alexander.
When the right stamp, when the right stamp is already on it.
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
been stamped before.
But that is
When
what
it's
I,
stamped,
yeah, without that is the visa. That is the visa of the title. You have visa.
absolutely. And the case of Alexander Kobridze is very, very good.
By the way,
Me, I discovered.
It has begun in FidMarseille with his first
I
film.
was about to say, I was in I discovered his cinema. At the time when I was not working at Marseille, I was just a tourist. I was just visiting a festival, and I didn't have any relationship with Jean-Pierre anymore, anyway. And uh, and I saw this film, 4 hours film, Let the Summer Never Come Again, which won the Grand Prize and the first film award in Fid this year. I was totally blown away. I was with Mathieu Amalric in the same. He was crying in the end, and at the time, Alexander wasn't. He didn't have the stamp already.
Exactly, exactly. But then it's quite interesting that he has not forgotten the way to do the films he loves to do. Because when
Yeah,
you saw, I love very much his second film, of course.
me too.
But when I saw the second film, I thought to myself, well, maybe he will never do again what he did for as a first film. But he did it again.
He did it. Yeah,
That is
it's quite
simple.
unique. Yes, he did it.
But coming
Mm-mm.
back to the extension of the program through writing on the
Yes,
program, can you tell us a little bit about
I
the
mean it's.
text and
I mean,
the yeah,
yeah, historically at Phil, it's something which Jean-Pierre really established, and I think he was the first one in film festivals, because he himself come from a critical background, in art, modern cinema, and um, and so when I started working with him, it was a pure joy to discover that. At the time, there was also a daily newspaper that I was in charge of in the first year I worked at Phil, and in which we published these long interviews with filmmakers. But anyway, yeah, it's this idea again that of programming as a critical gesture, or critic thinking being at the core, and at the yeah being the core work of programming. It expresses itself through this yes this thing we do, as you say, to publish for every film every year a proper critical text, which is, of course, it's all films we chose, so it's not a text which is meant to praise the film. It's, but as you said, and I've never thought of it like that. But yeah, it's a way of saying, in a way, expressing the reasons why we like the film, why we defend it, why we chose it. Yeah, it's to justify the choice in a way. Of course, it's not written like that, because it's written with something more of a in the form of a critical notice on the film. But the idea behind it, it's to not to justify, but to express the choices, and so to contribute to a critical work on contemporary cinema. That festivals have to contribute not only by selecting films, but can also contribute in a proper critical activity. I mean, the interviews, the long interviews we make with every filmmaker, it's out of generosity for the viewer, for the spectator, and there is also behind this activity, which is very very demanding for the team, because we close the program in early May, mid-May, and we have 1 month and a half to write everything, to do all the interviews. So it's a very demanding job for the selection committee. But the idea is of course to build an archive not of the festival, but an archive um, of contemporary cinema.
Absolutely, and it works fantastic. Even for me, sometimes, I have programs, some films I've seen there, and I have some doubts about something on the film because I didn't get. So I went back to the to the catalog, and I read the interview. It happened to me with a Chilean film, and I want
Mm-mm.
to read Lengua Muerta. And
Mm.
I read the article. Okay, I see. Now I have a hunch, but I was not so sure about something in the interview. It makes me to understand better the film. And
Yeah, of course.
I have the background as a Latin American to understand the film. But even though
Mm-mm.
I need to this, and I found it in the regular basis data, so to speak, of the FidMarseille. So this is
Yeah.
important, like to see that.
Also,
By the way, Lengua Muerta is a short film, which is not only about interviews and writing on the big films in terms of length, but also with the short films in terms of their films, which is the way it
yes,
should be
and
understood.
it's the same length of article for every film.
But this is something also important. Nowadays, you see there is a kind of an irregular programmers for the long films, and then for some people do the short films. That it happens in many film festivals. And then if you ask the main director of the festival, what about the short film? He or she doesn't have any idea about the film because they don't
Yeah,
care
but
if they're short.
I'm sorry, it's again a prejudice which comes from industrial criteria. The idea
Absolutely.
that short film is something you do before making a big. I mean, the whole new wave was made against this idea, this which comes back today because we live a reactionary time. So all these stupid old fucking reactionary ideas come back. I mean, in cinema, as in every field of activity in today's world, So yeah, this idea that short films are, in at Feed, we refuse to say court métrage because court métrage, short film, is again, it's a category which is dictated by the conservative industry.
Yeah,
It means when it's a court métrage, it means that it's not as important as a long métrage, as a feature film. No.
we never think when we see a Pelesham film, this is
Mm.
a short film. It's a Pelesham film. And in just 10 minutes, you can define and you can expand what cinema is through watching a film by Pelesham. So that is absolutely how to immediately say this argument is wrong about this idea that the short film is just the first step, like if you were a baby, like you're learning the language. That is not
Yeah,
true at all. Uh,
but But coming back to the interviews, one thing
Yeah,
that we made, the long interviews, one thing important maybe to add is that it's not interviews in which we discuss the meaning of the film or in which we try to interpret the film. Maybe it's something we do in the text, but in the interviews, the idea is really to discuss the making of the film with the filmmakers, to ask very, very simple questions about the image, sound, editing, very practical choices. It has to be very useful for the viewers, for us too, because me too, I go back to these interviews because, when we program the films all, I mean, we show and we try to screen the films we defend at the festival all year long then at FID, what we do in Marseille, we do it abroad and everything. So I go back to this. It's very rich material we have, but the idea is really and it's maybe this idea more to ask questions about the making of the film, how the thing is, how the film works, um, how does it look, how does the engine of the film look, how did you make the engine of the film? It's something maybe which we could say the same thing about the way we program and choose films. It's something that Jean-Pierre, maybe something I learned from him, maybe, or maybe it's we met on this point. The most important is not the sense of the meaning in a film, but the making of the sense, the making of the meaning.
yeah, the
Uh,
poetics and the rhetorical devices of a film, which
yeah,
nowadays,
the politics and
yeah,
so you have to it's like you could use the metaphor of a car. You have to to put your head in the engine of the car and see how it works, how it's done. That's interesting.
yeah, absolutely. And it's extremely important to understand that for viewers and film critics, and even sometimes when you ask that for the filmmaker, it's important because he clarifies him or herself what she or he has done. I read
Mhm.
that also. And also when you have the interview after the festival, after the screening in the festival, I have paid attention when I am there that again there is a third step is is picking the film, writing on them or writing on it, and then when the film is programmed, shown, and it has its premiere, the third movement is at the end of the film to stay with the filmmaker and the viewers and to not just the stupid question, why
Mhm.
to explore again the
Mm,
film in
mm, mm.
front of the audience. So the whole process allows to understand the state of cinema, which is, by the way, what film festival should be or could be. Mm.
Yeah, I think film festivals are not like just showcases from films. It's a critical apparatus to understand what is cinema today, what it can become, what it's becoming, and it's also like I've just seen this morning amazing new film by your compatriot Mariano Chinas about
Borges.
Borges. Yeah, it's amazing, and the whole 4 hour film ends with the idea of mapping and of geography, you know, and like doing the biography of someone is to map a territory.
Mhm.
And what we have to do, and I think it's the same with film festivals. A film festival every year is trying to draw a certain map of today's cinema, his map, his singular map. And it's something which you do consciously. And it's not only, of course, having a balance between continents, the map in terms of poetics, in terms of energies, in terms of many criteria, but it's cartography.
And
We have the
talking about cartography and maps and so on, there is behind it the idea of the adventure of going to unknown grounds. And I have realized that in certain ways, the way we look for films sometimes has become a little bit. We do not do enough in the sense of there is an open call for films, so we wait films to come to us, but we do not go to look for them in
Mhm.
places that they might be hidden in those places. I have seen you twice in the last 2 years going to one of the smallest but much rich film festivals in the world, which is the Mostra de Tiradentes. And so I see this gesture to go to places that even is still a place, let's say, on the system. But I sometimes I have the feeling that we do not go beyond that, like we do not go to really places which are not in the map. And there are
Yeah,
still places not in the map.
yeah.
How do
The
you
times of King Kong are still.
Yeah, because if you, in my case, I don't have any money, like a film programmer, yes, a film, as artistic director of the festival. If you ask me, if I just have an amount of money, I will go to Africa to live for 3 months, try
Yeah.
to understand what are the films that nobody sees, like just to give you an example.
No, it's a very good example, and it's yeah, we try to do that. I mean, as you said, Tiradentes, we the pleasure to see you and friends who have the same curiosity to go there. But for me, it was an amazing discovery of a continent I didn't know. I mean, a continent,
Yeah, yeah,
Latin
Brazil is the
America, but a
continent in the
continent
way.
of cinema. I mean, Brazilian contemporary independent cinema, which is for us, it's just another world. It's a world which doesn't come to us. We have to go there if we want to find and it brought many beautiful films to feed in the 2 3 recent years. Yes, but we don't do enough. I mean, Africa is a good example. It's a shame that we are so bad at finding and selecting and promoting good young African directors. Of course, they exist. Maybe they don't need us,
Maybe yes,
but
they don't
but
need us, but maybe we need them. Or
yeah, we need them.
in
I mean,
order to improve cinema or to expand what
of
cinema
course, we
can
need them.
be, we need, in
We
that particular sense, we need.
we need them not as festivals, because I think that a big danger for festivals is it's when the films become when the festival becomes more important than the films, and
Absolutely.
that you know.
But that is a big
Yeah, but
problem in Cyril, because there is a moment that film festival owns the filmmakers. Like this is our trademark, which is this is decadence by itself. To think in those terms.
absolutely, it's something I try for myself to fight against very strongly, because yeah, I know.
Uh,
Jean-Pierre has this tendency in a way, but
well, because
because
Jean-Pierre,
it is
I think there are two.
something passionate.
Yeah, but there are two persons for me which has been so different from all this bunch of people. One you have also mentioned it, which is I think Olivier Père at the beginning of this century when he was in Cansen, in a way recovered the spirit of the Cansen, because Cansen was created in order to go against the current of Camping Fest. And it was
Mhm.
also the let's say the outcome or the aftermath of the 1968 whole thing in
Mhm.
Paris and in France. But beyond that, I was thinking about something which is connected with this. It's how do you let me put it how to put it in this way. Uh, I was just telling you, I said Olivier Pierre, but also there are like Jean-Pierre, people like that, like someone like Hans Hirsch. They were in a way out of the map, you know, trying to go from a different way of understanding where are the films. Where are the films? This is the question for me. Where are the films? They are
Mhm.
only in platforms they are only the films that we have received through the call or the labs.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
also I
I-
also have almost a little bit suspicious when you as a film programmer, me, you, wherever, we go to places and we are desperately to see the work in progress film presented in the labs or something like that. That is the only
Mhm.
place to find films? That's my question.
No, I mean we at FidMarseille we work a lot, going to search for films among schools, but also just exploring our networks of people we know we know many people who don't send the films. For example, when we to do the selection, we have two tools. We have the platform with all the submissions, but we have another platform with all the films which we went to search, and we put them on the. So yes, of course, it's but even on the platform, because on the platform you have so many people who submit films who come out of nowhere, and you have to be able to recognize the films and to see the films among this. When you receive 3,000 films, 3,000 submissions, it's I did it. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do this pre-selection work in which you spend 3 months watching films from morning till night, and it's the most difficult job to do, to see. It's easy to pick again the filmmakers who are already known and who have the stamp, but the real joy and pleasure is when you find one or two gems, unknown gems, totally unknown, and gems from, I mean,
Yeah, and also it's sometimes there are films which challenging us to rethink about our criteria of what it means.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same
That's the
it's
problem
the
with
same films.
yeah, that's the problem with when you have a call and then you have 3,000 films and you begin and you realize sometimes how bad they can be because that is also the truth. But at the same time, in a moment, there is a film which makes you rethink what does it mean for me to say this is good, this is bad, this is this is that. And that is the moment that if you find the proper choice, it's like to
Yeah.
discover a species, like if you were Darwin
Mhm.
in the Galapagos, oh, I see something. And I love that. When Darwin saw something that absolutely unknown and he doesn't have a photograph, an iPhone, and he has to draw in, what he saw
Yeah.
and describe it. That is for me, that is a gesture of film criticism and film programming. Let's imagine that we don't have any more these tools and we have to draw the film. What kind of drawing would
Mhm.
be? Lovely. That's a lovely.
No, but the most difficult in this pre-selection process is not to confuse a bad film with a film you don't recognize.
Absolutely,
To
absolutely.
confuse a bad
But
film
but,
with a
but in that,
disturbing film.
but in that, Cyril, it's important how we keep ourselves rethinking the history of cinema because this is
Mhm.
where the knowledge comes to help you. Because if you have
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, we come back to the beginning of the discussion. Absolutely.
yeah. So if we come back to the beginning of discussion, maybe we are about to end it because it's a kind of a dialectical movement in the whole thing, I think. So on behalf of the whole of from the people who are doing Play Doc, I really, really thank on behalf of them. For me, it's always a pleasure to be talking to you and not only talking, sometimes to read you, even in French, that I don't master at all, but I learned a lot reading you. And I know that the coming edition of the Feed Marseille will be shining as ever. So thank you so much.
And I mean, thanks to you, thanks a lot, Roger. It was a honor really to be invited to this conversation. And I know you will be in Marseille, and I know you want to come to be there. And it's for me, it's so important that you, especially you, be there. And just a word, yeah, Playdoc I'm sure it's one of the festivals which belong to the team, to the team of
This
today.
is
And
important to say. I'm not strictly part of the team. I help them
mm,
But what I think uh, the main strong gesture in Playdoc comes from how they select the retrospective. I think they counteract the idea of the history of cinema. That's what I love from this festival that I'm helping, which is Playdoc. Beyond the selection, beyond it, when you paid attention on what they had been doing as in terms of presenting the retrospectives, I think they have a point there. They are adding something to film culture that nowadays I think it's a little bit rigid in certain ways.
Yeah, I will have a close look at it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for this conversation. It has been wonderful, and I will be talking to you maybe soon in May in a festival, but for sure I will be talking to you during
Before that.
July.
Ah,
July.
in July in Marseille for sure, but before that, my friend.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.